I'm a geologist and I'm a mineralogist and I've studied crystallography. Science came long, long before the art. I got my PhD, went through, I never drew, I never did anything until my 40s. And really a big revelation came to me when I'm sitting there talking to a woman about playing and thoughts about art, and she says, look, you're using your two hands just like I'm doing now. Symmetry is very important to me. Symmetry of a fugue, symmetry of the landscape, and using this three-dimensional way to express yourself. You should do sculpture. I said, oh, I hate sculpture. I'll never do sculpture. So of course, within a day I was doing sculpture. I've got all this stuff in my head, and why not use it? That's what makes an artist. Taking my rocks and my minerals and the wool and the linen and the metal that I love and putting it together in different ways. So my pieces are much more multimedia, because I don't just paint pictures of things. I do more conceptual art using the earth materials. No, I know what happened. I had some students do a little brochure for me, and I thought, they can't draw, I can do that. And I couldn't, but I certainly found out that I had the potential to draw. And then someone said, well, why aren't you painting? I said, well, I have to learn to draw before I paint. And she said, no, that's not true. So I found out I could, and I liked it. And it was just another expression of creativity and thought. And I really enjoyed it. But it wasn't until, you know, 15 years ago that I took up art, far, far after the science. As a geologist, I see the world in flat planes, because we see outcrops. And so all you're seeing is one facet or one plane of the earth. If we take a core, we're seeing one sample. If we look at a mineral surface, we're looking at one mineral surface, and then you can look at another mineral surface. So my things don't have depth, because I'm looking at the world in pieces and snapshots of what reality is. And I think that's what I try to portray, the concept of 5 pieces that might be flat, and what bigger whole do you make out of that? Like the piece that's called Perpetual Journey has the texture of a rock that shows that we had a moon on the Earth 3 billion years ago. But that doesn't, it doesn't feel, it doesn't look, it doesn't have the size of that rock, but it hopefully portrays the repetition of the cycle. The landscape provides beautiful juxtaposition of space, negative space and positive space. I'm inspired by a weathered texture of a rock. I like immediacy in my art. I don't want to wait for oils to dry, because I like to see things happen. I like to use natural materials. There's something about being a scientist of handling materials. So right now I'm painting on wood, and I like the organic nature of it, but I like the fact that I can control the shapes and do something myself. I love cutting. I love painting. I like drilling holes. I like metal. I use a lot of copper and silver, because you can shape it, you can beat it, you can heat it, you can change the chemistry of it. I can put a chemical on it and change the color. And I think a lot of scientists, well, would probably think painting doesn't take quantitative skills, but it does. You know, I was amazed once when I saw a book on drawing, and it said, you know, divide the tonal system into 8 equally different tones. I thought, well, that's like chromatographs. You know, it's sort of, you've got to have that quantitative sense of tone and color in order to get the best effects, but nobody ever really thinks about that. And when I do metal work, especially like some enameling that I've done, it's chemistry. You know, you clean the metal with nitric acid, and you oxidize sterling silver, and then erode, or you dissolve the oxides, which makes a fine, pure silver surface. The other thing trying to do with my art is, I'm an educator, I'm a geologist, and is to put something out there that will make people think a little bit. Why are there 5 pieces there with 2 things cut out? You know, what's she trying to do there? And so they can ask, they can inquire, they can say, oh, I think it's this, I think it's that. So it's making people think, not just like, oh, it's a pretty picture, because I don't make pretty pictures. Art is creative. People recognize that artists are creative. And I think that by talking about art and science, it gives me a floor to say science is creative too, because a lot of artist, and I can only speak about myself, I mull things over. I wake up in the night, you know, art doesn't come, I don't draw something out and say, okay, now I'm going to go do that, but they come to me in different ways. It sounds la-la, but you know, I sort of mull things around and say, oh, let's try this, or I'll doodle and do it. But I'm playing around either in my mind or in my dreams or when a person's half awake. And that's where some of the scientific discoveries come. You know, when you come up with a hypothesis, it's not something you just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to think up some great scientific thing that I'm going to go work on. But you live with it. You live with it weeks or months or years. And some of the great scientists have said they discover those aha moments when they're half asleep and they're sort of, and I think that's where my ideas come from, and then I go do it. And it's just like going to the lab. You go work in the lab, you go work in the studio. Kids have this sterile view of the crazy man with the funny hair and the glasses in the lab coat, and how sterile it is, and that the man is working by himself. It's not a social enterprise, which really science is these days, and they don't understand the beauty of science. And that's where I get really excited, is that, you know, all science is beautiful. That's why we become scientists. We enjoy the wonder of it, we enjoy the intricacy of it, the complicatedness of it, the coordinates of systems. I mean, it's just so fascinating the more you know, and I think art's the same way. The more you know about Renaissance paintings, the more you can appreciate them, or the more you know about sculpture, the more you can appreciate it.